In this video, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about how to master chords and chord changes. If you're a beginner or you're just struggling with chord changes, you're in the right place. I'm going to take you through 3 different steps in this. The first part, we're just going to cover mastering basic chords and getting to know chords, memorizing chords, things like that. A few strategies for how to do this. Part 2, we're going to talk about getting to fluency with chords, meaning how do we make it easy to change between chords, because that's a big challenge that people face. And then in step 3, we're going to talk about practice techniques that you can use to improve your chord changes. And at the very end of the video, I'm going to show you the best finger independence exercise I know and why it helps with chord changes so much. So stick around till the end of the video. First thing we're going to do is called squeeze and release. You're going to take whatever chord you need to work on, and you're just going to put your fingers on those strings, and then you're just going to rest them there, and you're going to squeeze and push those strings down and then relax. And the goal here is just to push those strings down at the same time. You just want those fingers to move together in unison. Yeah, this is probably the most boring part of learning chords, but it helps. It helps quite a bit. After you've done this squeeze and release on this chord, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to pull your fingers off, and you're just going to pull them off a little bit. Now, I am maybe less than a centimeter off of the strings when I do this. So what I want to do is pull those fingers off, and you're going to move very slowly when you do this. That really is key, is you want to move very slowly. You move very slowly off, hold that shape in your hand, and then put those fingers back down. And it's very critical that you move very slowly, because you want to stay in complete control of what's going on over here in the fretting hand. We don't want to move quickly and lose that shape. We want to move nice and slow, because what we're trying to do here is we're trying to develop some muscle memory so that your hand can remember the shape of each chord when you take it off of the fretboard. Now you're going to repeat this maybe 4,000 to 5,000 times, so get comfortable. You're going to repeat this a lot. I am kind of joking, but kind of not joking about that, sorry. You're going to repeat this a lot, and as you do this, you're going to start moving your hand further and further away from the fretboard. And if you can move your hand pretty far away, maybe 3-4 inches away, and keep that shape, then you can start moving a little faster. And if you can do that, that's a very, very good start. You're well on your way to having these chords down if you can move your fingers on and off pretty fast like this, pretty far away. Now you're going to repeat this with at least 2 chords, because we want to start changing between chords as well. I would suggest probably starting with like the E minor chord and then maybe the A minor chord. These are 2 very similar chords, and they're going to be easy to get down compared to maybe starting with like G and C, 2 very different chords, very different shapes. So start with maybe E minor and A minor, and you're going to have more success and get those down fairly easily. So you want to repeat this process. The first one, just squeeze and release, on and off. Then you're going to move your fingers off the strings, and then move those fingers further away, little by little. It may take a while. It just depends on how much you can practice. How effectively you're practicing this is also very important as well. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to apply this to moving between 2 chords. And what I'm going to suggest that you do is start by going between, like I said, the E minor and A minor, or whatever 2 chords you need to work on. What you're going to do is you're going to start on the first chord. You're going to move and stop over the second chord. So you want to kind of hover over the second chord, try to make that shape in your hand, and then put your hand down, put your fingers down. And then you're going to pull your fingers off, move to the next chord, hold that shape over the next chord, and then put those fingers down. Again, this is very exciting stuff, but it's a very good way to practice. It's going to help you verb, to develop a vessel in which guitar is played. It helps you develop the muscle memory you need. It helps you stay in control and develop good habits on the guitar. So speed is not something that you want to be worried about with this. You really want to stay slow and be in control of every motion that you make. So just going between 2 chords, switch, hover, and then land. Switch, hover, and then land. And that's how you're going to practice going between two chords. Before we get to part 2, I want to talk about some common mistakes that people make when they're practicing their chords. The first one is trying to practice too many chords at once. So don't start with too many chords. Start with just maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 chords at most to try to start getting the handle of. And with 4 chords even, you can play a lot of songs. In fact, there's several songs that you can play even if you only know 2 chords. If you feel like you're overwhelmed with too many chords, just learn fewer chords to begin with. The second mistake that people make when they're doing this is they're moving too fast between chords, and they're losing the chord shape in their hand, and they're landing on the wrong strings. So if you find that you're moving between 2 chords and you're having to put your fingers down and then readjust them, you're moving too fast. Just slow down. The slower you move, the faster you will learn. Remember that. The slower you move, the faster you will learn. I even find this difficult to do, is moving slowly. It doesn't feel like you're doing much, but the slower you move, the more in control of your fingers you can be, and the faster you can develop the muscle memory that you need to play these things fast. And we will get to playing fast in a minute, so just sit tight. The next big mistake that I see people make is inconsistent practice. This is probably the one that is the most common. Most people don't practice every single day, and that's something that you really need to focus on. You need to find a time where you can set aside at least 10 minutes. Maybe 20 minutes would be great, but if you can do even 5-10 minutes every single day of practice, you're going to make progress. You're going to see yourself getting better little by little every single day, and that's going to feel great. You're going to be playing guitar, playing songs in no time. So if you can't practice every single day, that's okay. Try to do 5 days a week. Consistency is super important. Think about it this way. If you have ever tried to learn a language, you know that you have to speak that language every day. Well, music is a language, and you have to speak the language of music every day. And every day that you practice, you build on what you did the day before. So if I practice on Monday and then I practice on Tuesday, I'm building on what I did on Monday. If I practice Monday and then I don't practice on Tuesday, don't practice on Wednesday, and then I finally get around to it on Thursday, everything that I've done on Monday is probably gone at that point, especially at the beginning of learning guitar. So you need to practice at least a little bit every single day. The next mistake that people make when learning chords is called laddering. And that is when you put one finger down at a time, and that becomes the habitual way of playing these chords. Now, at the very beginning, you kind of have to do this. Most people can't actually put all 3 fingers or 4 fingers or whatever it is down at the exact same time. So you kind of have to start with laddering, but you want to move away from that as soon as you can so that you get into the habit of going to chords and just putting those fingers down right away without hesitating. So that's why we do this on-off thing where we pull our fingers off, hold that shape just for a moment, and put it back down. That's going to help you avoid the laddering thing and making that a habit. We want that to be a habit. Okay, you've made it to part 2. You've learned some chords. Hopefully you have some things memorized at this point. Spend some time on part 1 and get a few chords memorized, and then you can move on to part 2. In part 2, what we're going to do is we're going to try to get towards fluency, to where you can actually, play some chords and move between them fluidly. So that's what the goal is with this, and we're going to do a few different things to get there. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to use a metronome. And I know, metronomes are not the most exciting thing in the world, but it's a really great tool to use, and it'll actually help you measure your progress so you can actually see objectively that you're getting better on the guitar. So what we're going to do is I have this app. It's a Pro Metronome. It's a free app. There's a paid version, but you don't need it. It's a free app, and we're just going to use this app to practice going on and off, just like we were doing in step 1. But this time what we're going to do is we're going to speed up this metronome so that we can make it a little bit more challenging, develop a little bit more muscle memory and some speed in our chord changes. Now the first goal with the metronome is to be able to go on and off at 60 beats per minute. So here's how we're going to do this. We're going to start the metronome. When it clicks, you pull your fingers off. When it clicks again, you put your fingers back on, and we just continue that. And then we speed up the metronome little by little. So let's do that now. So we pull our fingers off, put it back on. Pull it off, back on. Then what we're going to do is we're going to speed up that metronome 3 beats per minute. Off, on, off, on. 3 beats faster. Off, on, off, on. And we're just going to continue doing this until we get up to 60 beats per minute, or until it's moving too fast and we can't actually keep up and keep our fingers in this shape. Now, I'm not going to do the whole thing right now, but you get the idea. If you need to start the metronome at a slower tempo, that's fine. You can start at 20 or 10 or whatever. If the metronome starts going too fast for you to actually keep that shape in your hands, and that's when you stop. You might even write down how fast the metronome was, take a break, play something else, come back and do it again. The goal for each chord is 60 beats per minute. That's your first goal. Now I want to encourage you not to move on from that until you can do 2 chords at 60 beats a minute, just going on and off with the metronome. The second step is very similar, and that is the exact same thing, except now we're changing between 2 chords, and this is where it gets a little bit more tricky, a little bit tougher. You may actually want to start the metronome slower, but I'll demonstrate that now so you know exactly what you should be doing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start the metronome at 20 beats a minute. And what I'm going to do is when the metronome clicks, I'm going to move to the next chord and wait for it to click again. When it clicks, then I move back to the next chord. So I'm basically just changing chords, but I'm starting slow enough that's going to give me time to change between those 2 chords and then wait for the next click. So you might start this at 20 beats a minute if you need to. 30 beats a minute might actually be too fast, so I'll leave that up to you. But here's how it's going to go. So I'm just going to use E minor and A minor, but of course this works for any 2 chords that you're working on changing between. And here is what it's going to look like. So I switch and wait, and then switch and wait. So the click tells me time to move, and then I wait. What I do here is maybe 4 times at 20 beats per minute is what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to increase that speed just about 3 beats per minute, and then repeat. So I wait for the click, move, move, and switch. And then I speed this up again. So I'm going to repeat that process until the metronome is actually going too fast. You may not get up to 60 beats per minute the first time you do this, but if you do this consistently, you will see the metronome going higher and higher, and you're actually able to switch chords at a higher speed. And that's really great feedback because it tells you objectively that you're actually getting better at your chord changes. So this is a really great way to practice your chords. I know metronomes are not the most exciting thing in the world, but they're a great tool to help you see how you're improving and to improve even in small increments, which is usually how we improve anyway. Now you can also practice this, and you should practice this without the metronome. Just moving slowly between 2 chords, making sure that your fingers are landing in unison together. That's another thing that you should do just without the metronome, but with the metronome is a great way to actually see objectively where exactly you're at and where you need to be. 60 beats per minute is the first goal, and that's going to look something like this. The second goal that you have should be probably 100 beats per minute, and that is going to look like this. So that's fairly fast. If you've never played guitar before, that's pretty quick. Okay, but that's another great goal. So now we're at part 3. You've got a good system. You've got some good techniques for learning your chords and practicing those chords. Now I want to talk about some other more advanced techniques that you might need to use if you're having difficulty with your chord changes. The first thing you want to do is isolate the hardest changes that you come across and really focus on those. If you have a lot of difficulty moving from G to C, for instance, you're probably going to want to spend extra time on that chord change. A common problem that I see with students is they gravitate toward the things that are easy and try to kind of avoid the things that are hard. And I totally understand that. I have a tendency to do that myself as well. What I would encourage you to do is take the hardest chord change that you have first, the one that you really need to get down, but the one that is also the most difficult, and just tackle that one first every day. So for instance, if you have difficulty getting from G to C, which is a fairly common chord progression, right? G to C, you're going to see that a lot, but it's also one of the more difficult ones at first. You may want to spend extra time on that chord change first, because it's going to take longer to actually get that one mastered if you're finding it to be particularly difficult. So in short, don't avoid the things that are tough. Put those at the beginning of your practice routine. Tackle those first. Make sure you get those in every day, and you'll see consistent progress on those. The second thing you want to do when you're changing chords is look for common notes between chords. Okay? For instance, when you're learning the A minor going to the C major chord, you only have to move one finger between those two chords. Just the ring finger moves. These two fingers can stay down when you move from A minor to C. And I've seen people switching between these chords having difficulty because they're taking all their fingers off and then putting all their fingers back down. So that's one thing you want to watch out for is, can I leave a finger down when I move from this chord to the next chord? If you can, it does make it much easier. Third thing you want to watch for is that you're not moving your fingers really far away from the guitar. This is super common, and people change chords like this. They go from like an E minor chord and they're going to go to D, and they do this, and their fingers come way out here, and then they have to come way back in here to get down on the D. Try to avoid that as much as possible. You want to keep your fingers really close to the guitar. They don't have to be like, half of a millimeter away from the strings or anything, but you don't want to be moving your fingers really far away from the guitar and making it a lot harder to get your fingers down on the right frets and strings quickly. So if you can move more like this, keeping those fingers nice and close, and less like this, it's going to make things much easier. Another thing that you can try, and some people have found this to be helpful, some people not as helpful, but it's something that you can try if you need to. If you're having a lot of difficulty going from one chord to another, I'm going to use that G to C example again, is try just moving one finger at a time. So in other words, start from your G chord like this, and then just practice moving the index finger to where it goes on the C chord. Right? And then just try moving the middle finger from here to here on the C chord. You're not really worried about the other fingers at all. And then the third finger, where does the third finger move, right? So you can see where each finger goes as you do this. Sometimes just seeing what each finger does is helpful enough that it actually helps people improve their changes right away. After you've done one finger at a time, then maybe you do two fingers. So where do my index and middle finger go when I move? Just practice moving those two fingers, right? And then the next two fingers, and so on. You get the idea. So sometimes that is really helpful, and you can make you'll see improvement just by doing that a little bit at a time for each chord change that you make. So the last exercise I'm going to show you before I get to the finger independence that I told you about at the beginning of the video is called normal, slow, fast. And I called it that because I'm not very good at naming practice techniques. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to take the chord change, one of the chord changes that you've been working on, and you're going to switch between two chords at normal speed, which just means whatever is comfortable for you. You're just going to switch at a comfortable speed or normal speed, and you can play these chords. Just make sure that they sound good. And you're going to do this for maybe a minute or a minute and a half at a time. I'd recommend actually getting a timer so you can keep yourself on track. So normal speed for just a minute, minute and a half. And then you're going to move in slow motion. And when I say slow motion, I mean slow motion. Nothing moves fast. And I'll tell you this, everyone does this part wrong. Everyone moves too fast on this. When I say slow motion, I mean you play your G chord and then your fingers move in slow motion to the next chord. And then they move back to the first chord in slow motion. And I really mean to move that slowly, because that ensures that you are completely in control of the movements that your fingers are making. And what this does, it really helps you develop the muscle memory that you need, the control over your fingers that you need, so that when you move fast, it's automatic. And then you're going to do that for a minute and a half, and then you're going to move fast. And when I say fast, again, I mean fast like I mean slow. So when I say move fast, move as fast as you can between these two chords for a minute and a half. Now, if it's a little bit sloppy, that's fine. The goal of the fast portion of this is to see and test your muscle memory. So if you can move really fast and you're hitting those fingers, you're hitting those chords perfectly every time, maybe try to speed up a little bit, see if you can go even faster. It's a little sloppy, that's okay, because it's just a test for muscle memory. The slow portion builds the muscle memory. The fast portion of this tests the muscle memory and also helps you actually feel what it's like to move fast, and actually will help you be able to move faster between those chords. Okay, so now we've come to the end of this. We've gone through all three parts. Part one is your basic steps to learning chords. Part two is developing some fluency between chords. And then part three, I covered some practice techniques to help you master your chords and really get fluid with them. What I'm going to show you now is a really great finger independence exercise that you are not going to enjoy, but it actually is a very good exercise. I've been doing this exercise since I was in college. I got it from a book called Pumping Nylon, and it's a classical guitar workout book. It's worth looking up just for the cover alone. It has this big beefy arm on it and a classical guitar. It's super cheesy, but I love it. Here's the exercise. What you're going to do is you're going to take your 4 fingers on your fretting hand. Actually, you have 5 fingers on your fretting hand, but you're going to take these 4 fingers, the ones that we use to play guitar typically, and you're just going to line these up on the 3rd string. It doesn't matter where, it doesn't matter what frets you're on. You're just going to line these up on the 3rd string. And then you're going to take your index finger and you're going to touch the 1st string and then touch the 6th string, and you're going to go back and forth between these 2 notes while these 3 fingers stay stationary. Your wrist and your arm also stay stationary. So you should not be moving your arm, your wrist, or anything like that. Only the index finger moves. Then once you've done this back and forth maybe 10 times, you're going to put that finger back down and you're going to do this finger. The middle finger is next. You do that maybe 10 times. Slowly, you don't need to do this fast. Then you're going to do the ring finger, and the ring finger is probably going to be the hardest one. I've had multiple students, when they try to do the ring finger, they literally cannot actually move it, and they have to push it down and then push it up, and then they can start to move that. So you're going to do that maybe 10 times, and then you do the pinky 10 times. Now, the reason this finger independence exercise is so good and so helpful for chords is because it teaches you how to move these fingers independently from one another, which is what you're doing when you're switching chords. So take a look at this. If I go from C to a G, I'm not moving my fingers in unison. I'm actually moving these fingers in opposite directions, at least some of them. And that's what this is going to help you be able to do. Now, once you do this exercise and you can do each finger independently, one at a time, then you're going to start doing 2 fingers in opposite motion. And this is really where it starts to get very, very helpful. That's the exercise that I would give if I could only give 1 finger independence exercise. It is excellent. Okay guys, so that is my system for learning chords. Now, if you're still having difficulty, leave me a comment and I will answer your questions that you have. But what I've given you today should give you everything you need to learn chords, to learn your chord changes, to become fluid with your chord changes. If you want to, I do have a course that's coming out, and this is going to be out in the end of May. May 25th is when it'll be available. It'll be on sale for just a few days, And it's not an expensive course. It's not like a $300 or $400 course. It's going to be $67, and you'll have a few days to buy it if you want to. If you're interested in that, you can get on the waiting list, and I'll send you some free stuff while you wait for the course to come out. So if you found this helpful, of course, I appreciate you subscribing, sharing it with people and stuff like that. But you can also check out my other videos. If you check out my other videos, that actually really helps my channel. I hope you found this video helpful. So if you have any questions about chords, chord changes, leave me a comment, leave me a question. I'll do my best to get back to you. And I'll see you in the next video.